My name's Chloe. I work for TradeMe in their security team as an advisor. I mostly look after compliance, which is everyone's favorite thing. So if you want to talk to me about PCI, I know things about that. Come chat. Everyone's like, nah, we're good. So today we have remotely, and I'm sure that he will tell you where he is and all of that. I won't guess. Antarctica, maybe, John? I'm not sure. So we have John Ellingsworth from the OWASP SAMM project, talking about the status and roadmap. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining today. I am indeed in the States, as you can probably tell from my accent. But today I'm going to talk. I've been given the opportunity to talk about the OWASP SAMM, the current status of things, a little bit about the SAMM project, and the roadmap for 2021 and looking ahead. And this is the first I've done kind of a remote presentation to an in-house audience, so we'll see how this goes. So hope you can bear with me. All right, so just a big shout out to and thanks to our sponsors and hosts for supporting the conference. I wish I was there. I had the opportunity to join you last year. For those of you who attended last year, you might have attended one of the talks or the training that I did, and it was a great time. I wish I was there, but with COVID still running rampant over here in the States, not an opportunity for me. I wish I was able to be there and see you all and say thanks in person for the opportunity to speak, and thanks to the conference organizers especially. So my name is John Ellingsworth. Like I said, I live in the States. I live in New England, which for reference today, it's about 2 degrees Fahrenheit tonight. I think that's about -16, so it's a little cold. I wish I was there just for the summer experience as well. I've been doing this AppSec and software development for a long time now, just some information there about me, and been involved with a few OWASP projects and some organizations in the United States. So it's been a great opportunity and great experience for me to be part of the SAMM project. So privileged to talk to you more about it today. So SAMM at a high level, what is SAMM? SAMM is the software assurance maturity model. It is an open framework, freely available to anyone who wants to use it. It's an effective and measurable way for you to assess your organization's security posture and the practices and activities being done in your organization as it relates to application security and software development. And it's really got 3 kind of key objectives, which are to be measurable, actionable, and versatile. Measurable, of course, we want to be able to provide quantifiable measurements of activities that teams are doing as they build software. Actionable, we want to be able to provide prescriptive pathways for improving the software development that they're doing. And versatile, important that any framework that we're going to be utilizing is flexible to be used in our organization in terms of technology, process, and methodologies that might be in place. So what is the benefit? So why SAMM? It's as I said, it's agnostic. It's used to evaluate the organization's existing security practices and allow that organization to come up with an effective roadmap that can be implemented over a period of time in well-defined iterations that include specific activities that teams can do to improve their software security, whether that's testing, whether that's security requirements, security architecture, really adopting a security by design approach. It allows them to demonstrate concrete improvements over time, which is critically important, I believe, to any AppSec program for leadership to be able to see and understand the value of it. And as I said, you can define and measure very specific security-related activities throughout the organization or the scope of your software assurance program. And there's some very specific guiding principles here. that SAMM kind of adopted and has been utilizing through all the various versions as it's been refactored over time, which is, an organization's business behavior, organizational behavior changes slowly over time. So changes need to be iterative while working towards those long-term goals defined in your roadmap. There isn't really a single recipe or approach that can be used for all organizations, so it needs to be adaptable and risk-based based on the organization's kind of risk appetite and areas of high risk. The guidance is generally intended to be related to security. The security activities are intended to be prescriptive. So it needs to be able to give clear guidance to software development teams, especially those who are new to software development and security, and allow them to understand what kind of objectives and things need to be done to achieve and improve the maturity of the organization. And overall, it should be simple, well-defined, and as I said, measurable. And that is, as I said, the goal of OWASP SAMM. Briefly here, we have an outline of the history. SAMM started, the software assurance maturity model actually started as Open SAMM in March of 2009 by Pravir Chandra. And it kind of was available for several years until about March 2016, when a minor release was made to Oauth Sam 1.1. And during that same time period, a decision was made by Pravir to offer the project over to OWASP as an OWASP project in the same year, March 2016, and it became formally known as Oauth Sam 1.1. Over the next year, work was made to release a new version of it with supporting resources and toolkit. In February 2017, Oauth Sam 1.5 was released. Since that time, there's been some increasing activity in the community around the project, and in January 2020, the 2.0 version was formally released. On January 31st, 2.0 was released. And since that time, we've been actively working on fine-tuning our roadmap, increasing the activities of the community involvement, doing increasing outreach to events like this one here, offering training online, and a number of other activities to increase, adoption of it and to help promote and increase contributions to it. In a little bit, I'll talk about the upcoming roadmap for the rest of 2021 and looking ahead to the future. Just briefly, since we had some big changes between versions 1.5 and 2.0. In 1.5, there were 4 business functions. In SAMM 2.0, there are now 5. I'll go over those in a moment. We have defined 3 security practices for each of those business functions. Go to the next slide here. There we go. All right. One moment. Okay, there we go. And now activities are divided into 2 separate streams, and those activities are kind of in logical flows that align link the activities in the practice over the different maturity levels. Streams are intended to have an objective that can be achieved in increasing levels of maturity, and as part of the refactoring of 1.5 with 2.0. The goal was to ensure that there aren't any orphan activities that are only relevant on a single maturity level. There were various scenarios with 1.5 where it was possible to achieve a high level of maturity without actually achieving some of the underlying activities that would be necessary to really define oneself as mature. So here is a kind of high level skeleton of what the structure of SAMM is. At its highest level, SAMM, as I said, defines 5 business functions, and each business function is a category of activities that any organization involved with software development should or must fulfill to some degree. Each of those business functions has 3 security practices, areas of security-related activities that build assurance for that related business function, such as governance, implementation, verification, operations. And the security practices have activities grouped in logical flows and divided into these two streams. These streams cover different aspects of a practice, and they have their own objectives, aligning and linking the activities in the practice over the different maturity levels, as I said. And for each one, SAMM defines 3 maturity levels. There is kind of a 4th one, which is you're not doing anything at all for a particular activity. But in general, we define it with the 3 levels as illustrated here. And each of those levels has a successively more sophisticated objective with specific activities and more strict success metrics. So to give this is a breakdown of the 5 business functions as they exist, with the practices underneath each of those functions. So we have, at the highest level, we have governance, design, implementation, verification, and operations. And underneath of that, you can see a number of various practices that support those business functions. For example, in governance, organizations are going to be interested in strategy and metrics as a practice, policy, compliance, and education and guidance. Under, just as a quick example, under implementation, you'll have secure build and secure deployment and defect management. So all these practices are probably familiar to some degree to a lot of you in the audience, familiar with, application security, and SAMM coalesces them under these various functions so that there's kind of a nice logical structure to your assurance program. So this slide now just takes it down another layer and shows the 5 functions, the various practices of those functions, and those streams. And as you can see, the streams kind of have different objectives within them. For example, under operations and incident management, a component of incident management would be the ability to detect incidents that are occurring within your in your architecture or your infrastructure or your application. And then secondary, or another stream that's part of the incident management objective, would be your incident response. So what activity, as an activity, what are you doing to support incident response within your organization? And it's not always the case that all of these streams are going to necessarily apply to your organization. In some cases, these streams, they may be more applicable if you're, for example, if you're dealing with a third party, you may want to ensure that a particular stream, like under security requirements and your supplier security, you may want to apply these to those to vendor particular supply chains or things of that nature to verify that things are meeting your organization's assurance expectations. So that's SAMM really at a very high level and a kind of brief level there. I just wanted to give that overview of what the structure looks like and some of the practices and the streams that are involved with it. As part of the project from Oauth Sam, the Oauth Sam core team and the community have pulled together a number of different tools to support an organization's implementation of Oauth Sam. There's a resource called the Oauth Sam Toolkit, which today in its current manifestation is a Excel document that allows you to, that includes a questionnaire that allows you to do an assessment of your organization's current maturity level. There's a series of questions that you can go through and ask your stakeholders how they're handling particular activities within that particular practice to come up with a scoring for them and actually quantify and measure the current state. And with that, you can then, within the toolkit, there's a number of really cool features. There's a road mapping tool that will allow you to project over a period of phases what your intended maturity goals are over those various phases, and come up with a implementation plan over those phases so that you can achieve the maturity objective that you set out for. Another active project, sub-project within the OAuth SAMM project is the internationalization effort. It's initially was released in English, but there are a number of translation efforts underway, Spanish, Chinese, there are several others, and there's an active effort within the OAuth SAMM project to get other languages on board. So if you're fluent in other languages and would like to contribute, that would be a great opportunity for you to kind of not only help the project, but also to get a feel for of what the actual model is and understand it with greater depth. There's a benchmarking project. So the benchmarking project is an effort to kind of collect data, metrics from other organizations that have gone through the assessments and share those that data that's collected from those various assessments and make them available to, anonymously available to other stakeholders, other users of OAuth SAMM, so that they can basically say, how do I compare to others? It allows them to understand, how, as it implies, to benchmark themselves against others, maybe in a similar industry or in other areas of maybe a particular business function, if that's their interest, and just to see how well they're doing against others. There are actually, the next item, web application. There are actually a couple of different sub-projects going on these days. Currently with web application, we're in an early phase of gathering some high-level requirements for a new instance of a web application. There have been some existing web applications done in the past. There is one that's currently available on the GitHub repository that you could run locally that was shared with the project. And there's, as I said, there are some others that are forthcoming. We have a plan in the roadmap, which I'll just share with you in a moment, more information about the web application project. And then there's a PDF project. So the model is actually, as it is today, it's stored in GitHub as a set of YAML files, but there's an effort to create nice PDF versions of the model so that you can consume it more readily or share with stakeholders or print it if you'd like, or however you'd like to share that. So there are a number of resources on the OAuth SAMM GitHub repository or project that you can check out to help you begin an implementation of OAuth SAMM in your organization. And if you do decide to take a look at OAuth SAMM and bring it into your organization, there's a couple of things that we emphasize, for helping you become successful with doing so. And of course, number one is getting buy-in from your stakeholders. And one of the ways of doing that, of course, is to increase awareness and education, not only of SAMM in particular, but application security in general at your organization. Approach it, any kind of implementation of a software assurance program with a risk-based approach. One of the things that people often ask us about is, where do I start? And certainly there's, in some organizations, a large number of software development teams or applications that are within the organization, and you really want to invest your time wisely. So addressing those applications that are of high risk to the organization, whether that's a financial risk, a reputational risk, or other type of risk, you definitely want to expend your resource time and money tackling those things that are going to give you a good return on your investment, and higher risk things are certainly the way to go first. Defining an initiative scope. Scope is an important thing to keep in mind when you're doing an assessment. Generally, scope means the span of applications or teams within your organization that you might be assessing. If you're a relatively small company or a single product team, then the scope of your assessments may be just on maybe a single assessment for the entire company. But if you're a very large or mid-sized company with a number of software development teams, working on different types of applications and products, you want to make sure that your assessments and your internal comparisons of that assessment data is done in a way that you're comparing and doing an apples to apples comparison versus, say, and an example of what that might be if you have a revenue generating system like e-commerce versus, say, a marketing, a web application used for marketing. The kind of risk that's associated with that may be slightly different. And so you want to define your scope clearly so that either as the maturity evolves of those teams, or if it doesn't, you're doing comparisons in a way that's fair and reasonable to them. Integrating and automating security practices in your development, acquisition, and deployment processes are certainly going to make your life a lot easier. And so an area of focus for your success is going to be focusing on automation. And of course, measurement. The goal of SAMM is to be measurable, and so provide your leadership visibility. So let's jump to our roadmap for the upcoming year. Well, actually, let's take a quick look back in 2021. Or in 2020. It's been a long year for all of us, but in any way, in 2020, we launched Oauth Sam 2.0, as I mentioned. Throughout the year, we released and developed and released a new website. We did a lot of promotion around 2.0 to the community. And on 16th of June, we did a SAMM User Day, which was a great opportunity to collaborate with our community. In November of 2020, we had a SAMM core team meeting where we got together to do our annual summit as a virtual summit, and we put together a roadmap, and we did some working sessions where we designed a new GitHub structure to start as a separate org. We cleaned up our repository, came up with an outreach plan for 2021. We designed and integrated OWASP into YAML format for the model and for the website. We came up with some SAMM implementation roadmaps. We came up with a new versioning strategy, translation efforts, as I mentioned, just a whole lot of work done during the course of the year. And one of the biggest things that we're really proud of and are grateful that we did was we came up with a new CI/CD pipeline using GitHub, which many of you are probably familiar with, but we can, with our new pipeline, which is just illustrated here, for not only the model itself, but also for the website, we can release updates to the model more often in smaller iterations. So our goal is to actually provide more frequent releases of SAMM in the coming months and years. So just looking ahead here, we have just some of the things that we're doing over the next few months. We're working on translations of the model, as I mentioned earlier. We're working actively to get some translations of the Excel toolbox that I mentioned earlier, which will certainly be really helpful to a lot of organizations. We're working on mapping. So mappings are a really valuable tool. They're mapping a number of mappings, whether it's to, in the US, whether it's NIST and CSF, or mapping of the various practices and activities to other OWASP projects that will support those activities. Mappings are a big initiative for us. The PDF generation is ongoing. We're working on a new data model so that for our assessments, for our benchmarking, and our web application, it'll allow us to make data more readily accessible to your own internal solutions or integrations, but also to potential external integrations. We're working on some more templates for the roadmaps and an improved quick start guide. So those are forthcoming, hopefully in the next couple of months. And ideally, we will have your involvement with that. Looking a little further ahead to Q3 and Q4, we're looking to increase SAMM training. We do provide links to trainings that have been done in the past and talks on the OWASPSAMM.org website, more SAMM webinars, the online assessment tool, benchmark governance, which is important for us if we're asking organizations to share their data with us, and also, activity-specific guidance with labels. It's a jam-packed roadmap for this year, and so we're hopeful that it's ambitious, but we're hoping that we can get a lot of it done. Mappings to technologies, I kind of alluded to that with the OWASP projects. External references, there are other models that exist that might be relevant. There are other supporting resources that would support SAMM for those who are getting started with it. There are a lot of companies that do SAMM assessments and have implemented it as part of their organization's security services, and we're looking to pull together vendor lists. We're looking to do evaluation of stream-specific scoring. Right now, it's done more at a practice and business function, but doing stream-specific scoring is an ask that we've seen. And then finally, I mentioned the data part. We're looking to make the data model accessible through an API. So right now it's available in YAML, but YAML's not necessarily the easiest thing to use in via an API. So there's going to be some work around that. And then further ahead in 2022, which seems so far away, but it's not as far as we thought. Getting committed assessment data to the benchmark data, online roadmaps with benchmark overlays, some vertical industry benchmarks, vertical specific scoring. I mentioned that a little bit. This is a lot of the benchmark project initiative here. And then an enhanced user community platform to exchange experience and best practices. We do have OWASPSAMM.org and the GitHub project, but and there's always opportunities for improving the community there. So a brief shout out here. We've got a very little bit of time left. User Day is coming up. Oauth Sam User Day is going to be on Thursday, May 27th, 2021. Check out OWASPSAMM.org/user-day to keep abreast as to what that's going to be about and to sign up. We'd love to have your involvement with that. And then on March 9th and 10th, which is actually, that's a Tuesday and Wednesday for me. That's probably a Wednesday, Thursday for you, something like that. But there is a online training, Secure Your SDLC using OAuth SAM ASAP. It goes through it. It's a very deep dive into OAuth SAM 2.0 implementations and adoption within your organization, and into the various business functions, practices, and activities. So if you're interested, take a look at that link there. You can also check out training.owasp.org for more information, and that will be a virtual training. And then finally, we take part and contribute. There's a number of ways you can do that. Sign up for our mailing list. Check us out on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Slack. Take part in the user day, even if you're an observer and not necessarily an active participant. There's a lot to learn and to hear more about. And definitely check out OWASPSAMM.org. And just a quick shout out to a number of the core team members who've been involved for the last couple of years. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of enjoyable work. It's a great team to work with, and hopefully you will reach out to us and take part, and we can add your name to this list. And just finally, thanks to everyone who was here today to hear this talk. I know it was very compressed, and I appreciate the opportunity. Feel free to reach out to me, either one of those email addresses, and hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.
Brilliant, thank you. I think we've got maybe a minute if anyone has any quick questions. I had one. John, it sounds like you're going to be very busy over the next wee while. What are you most looking forward to?
So for me, my area of my main interest personally is on the toolkit and migrating the toolkit from a kind of desktop client, desktop app in Excel to a more portable app, whether that's, either in migrating an interim step to, say, Google Sheets, where it can be more accessible. But the web application in particular is important to me. So I'm looking forward to having a web application available to people who want to run it in their own organization, and also having some kind of publicly accessible one where people can sign up and do the assessments on their own through a web app.
Brilliant, fantastic. Thank you so much for your time, John. Let's thank him again.
You're welcome.